Imagine a landmass stretching over 2,200 miles from top to bottom. In the deep south, you have solid walls of ancient ice, weighing millions of tons, actively crushing against bedrock with the force of a continuous earthquake. Up north, you have workers cutting salt out of the cracked earth by hand, sweating under brutal high-altitude glare, where the white ground reflects the sun straight back into their faces. This is not a normal country. Argentina is an entire continent compressed into a single, highly volatile border. You do not come to a place like this for a luxury vacation. You come here to witness exactly how insignificant human engineering is when matched against the brutal mechanical forces of planet Earth. The geography here does not care about your comfort. It is an unforgiving machine of freezing winds, scorched earth, and violent geological pressure. Every road built and every city established here is a daily battle against extreme conditions. Generations of tough men have had to learn how to adapt their infrastructure, their economy, and their daily habits just to survive in environments that look and operate like an alien planet. From the hostile tundra to the bone-dry salt flats, if you make a mistake in these remote territories, you rarely get a second chance. Let us start where the continent shatters into the ice. All over the planet, the story is the same. Glaciers are melting, retreating, and fading away into history. But down in the extreme southwest of Argentina, inside Los Glaciares National Park, there is a massive glacier that once seemed to defy the global pattern of retreat. For decades, Perito Moreno was treated as a rare anomaly, a wall of ice that appeared stable while many others around the world were shrinking. But recent scientific reports have made the story darker. Even this giant is now showing signs of serious retreat, turning it from a simple spectacle into a warning sign carved in blue ice. To understand the sheer scale of this frozen machine, you have to look at the numbers. We are talking about a solid wall of ice 19 miles long and 3 miles wide. It rises 240 feet above the freezing waters of Lake Argentino and plunges another 550 feet below the surface. That is a structure taller than a 25-story skyscraper and heavier than any man-made object on Earth. It is fed by the southern Patagonian ice field, one of the largest bodies of ice outside Antarctica and Greenland. So why did this glacier appear so stable for so long, while so many others were retreating? The answer lies high in the Andes Mountains within the southern Patagonian ice field. Unrelenting Pacific storms dump massive amounts of snow into this high-altitude basin. As the snow piles up, the sheer weight compresses the lower layers into solid ice. This immense geological pressure literally squeezes the oxygen bubbles out of the ice structure. That is why the ice here is not white. It is an aggressive, radioactive-looking blue. You are looking at ice that is so dense it absorbs all the colors of the light spectrum except blue. Gravity accumulation pressure and the sheer weight of the ice field force the glacier to move through the valley in some reported sections advancing up to 7 feet in a single day. When millions of tons of compressed ice grind over solid granite, it does not do so quietly. Standing near the face of Perito Moreno sounds exactly like standing on an active battlefield. As the internal pressure builds and the ice shifts, it snaps. The cracking sounds mimic high-caliber rifle fire echoing across the valley. And when a block of ice the size of a city block shears off the main wall and collapses into the lake, the impact hits your chest with the concussive boom of heavy artillery. Occasionally, this moving ice front presses into the opposite shore of the lake, forming a temporary dam. It cuts the lake in half. Water levels on one side can rise up to 30 feet higher than the other. The hydraulic pressure of millions of gallons of water fighting against a solid wall of ice creates an unbearable tension. Eventually, the water forces a tunnel through the ice, eating away at the frozen pillars until the entire structural arch violently collapses. It is an exhibition of raw, catastrophic physical power. "200 miles to the north stands another monument to extreme geographical violence, Mount Fitzroy. Standing 11,171 feet tall, it is a terrifying monolith of sheer vertical granite cutting into the sky. You will see pictures of it on outdoor gear and in travel brochures, looking peaceful and majestic. Do not let the marketing fool you. For the men and women who attempt to climb it, Fitzroy is widely considered one of the most technical and lethal mountains on the planet. The danger here is not altitude sickness. The danger is the atmosphere itself. This peak sits directly in the path of the Roaring Forties. These are uninterrupted oceanic winds that gather speed across the Pacific Ocean and slam directly into the Andes. There is nothing to slow the wind down before it hits the mountain. Gusts here routinely exceed 100 miles per hour. That is equivalent to a Category 2 hurricane. A wind that strong will effortlessly pick up a fully grown man wearing an 80-pound pack and throw him off a cliff. The air currents are so violent that ropes freeze horizontally and metal carabiners vibrate until they snap. The native Tehuelche people originally named it Chalten, which translates to the smoking mountain. It is not a volcano. The smoke is actually dense clouds being shredded apart by the jagged granite peaks at terrifying speeds. Climbers here do not conquer Fitzroy. They survive it. Expeditions will sit in ice caves at base camp for 4 straight weeks, just praying for a 12-hour window of clear weather. One mistake, a jammed rope, a miscalculated storm front, or a sudden drop in temperature, and the mountain becomes a frozen graveyard. It is a place that demands absolute tactical precision and offers zero forgiveness for human error. From these eternal walls of ice and lethal granite spires, we plunge deeper into the harsh southern frontier, into a place historically known as the very end of the world. "200 miles south of the ice fields, the continent shatters into a frozen archipelago known as Tierra del Fuego. At roughly 54 degrees south latitude, you reach one of the southernmost cities on Earth, Ushuaia. Today, cruise ships dock here before crossing the Drake Passage, and travel agencies sell it as a quaint outpost at the end of the world. But do not be deceived by the bright paint on the buildings or the modern cafes. Human beings did not settle this place because it was beautiful. They came here because they were forced to. In the late 19th century, Argentina had a serious geopolitical problem. This freezing, isolated territory was highly strategic, guarding the Beagle Channel and the critical maritime passage between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. European powers and neighboring Chile were rapidly expanding their reach. The Argentine government desperately needed boots on the ground to establish permanent sovereignty, but convincing ordinary citizens to move to a barren subantarctic wasteland of horizontal sleet and freezing temperatures was nearly impossible. The solution they devised was brutal, unyielding, and highly effective. They built a maximum security penal colony. Ushuaia was engineered to function as the Alcatraz of South America. The federal government shipped its most dangerous repeat offenders, ruthless criminals, and political dissidents to the absolute edge of the earth. Escape was a guaranteed death sentence. If a convict managed to slip past the armed guards, they would simply freeze to death or starve in the surrounding frozen bogs and jagged mountains. These inmates became the ultimate captive workforce for the state. Stripped of their freedom, they quarried the stone, cut the timber, and built the town's initial infrastructure by hand in sub-zero temperatures. The famous train of the end of the world, which tourists happily ride today, was originally a convict logging train. Prisoners were marched into the freezing elements and forced to clear-cut the nearby forests just to keep the prison stoves burning. Many died from exposure, malnutrition, and exhaustion. The very foundation of this city is built on the broken backs of that forced labor. Just surviving the climate in this remote outpost is a daily test of mechanical and human endurance. The Beagle Channel acts as a natural wind tunnel, funneling the notorious Furious 50s weather systems directly into the town. For centuries, this channel has been a graveyard for sailors, notorious for rogue waves and sudden violent pressure drops. On land, the wind does not just blow, it actively assaults the landscape. It is not uncommon for gusts to exceed 80 miles per hour, bringing blinding snow squalls in the middle of summer. Because of this extreme atmospheric pressure, residential architecture in Ushuaia is entirely defensive. You will not find standard suburban framing or decorative shingles here. Homes and commercial buildings are heavily fortified with thick gauge corrugated iron and reinforced steel skeletons. The local building codes are strictly dictated by the wind. Roofs are specifically pitched and bolted down with industrial hardware to prevent gale-force drafts from getting underneath and violently ripping the entire structure off its concrete foundation. Windows are deliberately small and triple-paned to trap the heat and keep the lethal cold outside. In the deep winter months, the steep town streets turn into solid sheets of ice. Normal driving is impossible. Residents rely on heavy-duty studded tires, industrial chains, and four-wheel drive just to navigate the short distance to the grocery store. Everything from the plumbing systems to the municipal power grid has to be winterized to the extreme, because a sudden loss of heating during an August blizzard is not a minor inconvenience. It is a life-threatening emergency. The people who call this place home possess a unique, hardened resilience born from fighting against an environment that wants to push them into the freezing seas. But as we leave the bitter isolation of this frozen southern outpost and head north up the sprawling Atlantic coast, the landscape shifts. We leave the ice behind and step into the domain of a massive, unrelenting economic machine. Leaving the bitter isolation of the frozen southern frontier, we move 2,000 miles north into a radically different kind of survival zone. We enter Greater Buenos Aires, a metropolitan machine of roughly 15 million people. It is a megacity of staggering European architecture, endless asphalt, and absolute financial chaos. To understand how a metropolis of this massive scale keeps its heart beating, you have to ask a simple logistical question. How does a seemingly empty plain of grass manage to feed one of the most populated urban centers in the Americas? The answer starts at the edge of the Rio de la Plata. Here sits Puerto Madero. Today, it is a district of high-rise apartments and corporate wealth, but its foundation is pure industrial engineering. Built in the late 19th century, this port was an ambitious dredging project designed to accommodate massive cargo ships. It acted as the primary mechanical valve for Argentina to pump its agricultural wealth out to the rest of the world. Heavy iron cranes and massive red brick warehouses lined the docks, processing millions of tons of beef and grain. The ornate architecture of central Buenos Aires mirrors the wealth generated by that massive export boom. Wide avenues, French-style palaces, and intricate stone facades make it look like a displaced European capital. But behind the heavy stone walls and grand plazas, the daily reality for the men and women living here is a brutal economic war. Argentina operates under a system of chronic, crushing inflation. We are not talking about a subtle annual increase in the price of fuel. We are talking about a national currency devaluing so rapidly that grocery stores have employees constantly updating price tags throughout the day. Restaurant menus are sometimes printed without prices because the cost of a steak can jump between lunch and dinner. For the average working man on the street, survival requires relentless financial maneuvering. Saving money in the local peso is a guaranteed way to wipe out your own wealth. As soon as a paycheck clears, the cash is immediately spent on hard goods, bulk groceries, or quickly converted into US dollars on the thriving underground exchange network known as the blue market. Piles of local cash are exchanged in hidden back rooms just to preserve basic purchasing power for the month. It is an exhausting, high-speed economic treadmill, but the residents navigate it with a hardened, cynical discipline that you will not find in more stable economies. No matter how volatile the financial markets get, the massive city never starves. The reason for this security lies just outside the city limits across a grassland system measured in hundreds of thousands of square miles. The Pampas. Travel brochures will sell you a romantic image of gently rolling meadows and peaceful country sunsets. Strip away the marketing, and you are looking at one of the most efficient, ruthless, and massive biological engines on the planet. The Pampas is not a scenic pasture. It is a factory. It is a relentless meat-producing machine. The topsoil here is incredibly deep and rich in heavy minerals deposited over millennia by ancient wind and river systems. It grows a specific type of tough, nutrient-dense grass that requires zero human intervention, no fertilizers, and no irrigation to thrive. Millions of heads of cattle roam these completely flat plains, continuously converting that wild grass into high-grade protein. There is no need for complex, chemically dependent feedlots. The geography does the heavy lifting. The cattle simply eat, grow, and are funneled into a highly streamlined industrial slaughter and processing network. This physical infrastructure feeds both the voracious daily appetite of Buenos Aires and a highly demanding global export market. It is an entire national economy written in flesh and bone. Operating this massive biological machine requires a specific breed of men. The gauchos. Do not confuse them with the singing cowboys of old Hollywood Western movies. These are pragmatic, iron-willed men who work in an unforgiving environment where physical weakness is simply not tolerated. Historically, they lived nomadic lives on the open plains, answering to no central government and relying entirely on their own survival skills. Today, they remain the undisputed backbone of the Argentine cattle industry. A gaucho commands respect through absolute mastery of his horse and his tools. He breaks wild horses using patience and sheer physical dominance, forming a bond built on utility and mutual endurance. The most important tool he carries is the facon. It is a large, heavy steel blade tucked into the back of a wide leather belt. It is not a decorative prop. The facon is used for everything from mending tough leather saddles and cutting thick rope to slaughtering livestock, and in the violent past, settling deadly disputes in the dust. Their diet is as raw and unpretentious as their daily labor. It consists almost entirely of beef roasted slowly over an open wood fire, accompanied by bitter mate tea sucked through a metal straw. The mate is heavily caffeinated and acts as an appetite suppressant during brutal 12-hour shifts in the saddle under a baking sun. It is a culture built on stoicism, solitary labor, and a strict code of honor that offers zero complaints about the physical pain of a hard day's work. Here on the Pampas, survival is fueled by an endless horizon of grass and a surplus of heavy rain. Water is an afterthought, abundant, and taken entirely for granted. But if you travel directly west toward the jagged shadow of the high Andes Mountains, the rules of survival undergo a violent shift. We leave the humid abundance behind and step into a harsh altitude desert where men must fight the geography to squeeze every last drop of liquid from ancient shrinking glaciers just to stay alive. Moving directly west from the sprawling cattle plains of the Pampas, the humid air evaporates. You hit a massive geographical wall known as the Andes, and the environment instantly transforms into a high-altitude desert. This is Mendoza. The rain shadow created by the towering mountain range strips the moisture from the atmosphere, leaving behind baked earth, relentless sun, and annual rainfall that barely reaches 8 inches. By all natural laws, this barren dust bowl should not be able to sustain a large human population, let alone an agricultural empire. Yet this exact punishing desert produces around 70% of Argentina's wine production, dominating the country's global reputation through the Malbec grape. The secret to this survival is not a modern agricultural miracle. It is a highly disciplined system of hydroengineering that dates back centuries. The indigenous Huarpe people were the first to realize that while the sky offered no water, the mountains held an infinite frozen reservoir. They began carving trenches into the hard earth to capture the seasonal glacial meltwater rushing down from the Andean peaks. When Italian and Spanish immigrants arrived in the late 19th century, bringing their European grapevines, they did not replace this indigenous infrastructure. They expanded and weaponized it. They built the acequias. This is a massive gravity-fed irrigation network consisting of thousands of miles of concrete and stone channels. These deep trenches run parallel to every single street highway and vineyard property line in the region. There are no massive sprinkler systems wasting water to evaporation here. It is an entirely calculated system of flood irrigation. Municipal water guards physically open and close heavy iron floodgates on a strict neighborhood-by-neighborhood schedule. Every drop of glacial runoff is accounted for channeled directly to the root systems of the vines. The stress of this dry climate, combined with the controlled, precise watering forces the vines to dig deep into the mineral-rich soil, producing a tough, thick-skinned grape. That stress translates directly into a multi-billion-dollar global export. It is an industry entirely dependent on wringing liquid gold out of a barren desert through sheer mechanical discipline. Looming directly over these profitable vineyards is the very source of their wealth, a mountain that commands absolute respect. Mount Aconcagua. Rising to an elevation of 22,837 feet, it is the highest summit on Earth outside of the Himalayas. For mountaineers, Aconcagua presents a deadly psychological trap. Because the standard approach does not require technical ice climbing gear or vertical rope ascents, it is frequently marketed to amateur climbers as a long, high-altitude hike. That marketing is a fatal deception. The mountain does not kill you with steep drops. It kills you through extreme physical deprivation. As climbers push past 20,000 feet, they enter the upper atmosphere. Because the Earth is wider at the equator and thinner toward the poles, the atmospheric pressure at this southern latitude drops significantly faster than it does on Mount Everest. Standing near the summit of Aconcagua subjects the human body to conditions where the available oxygen is roughly 40% of what you breathe at sea level. This is the physiological red line known as the death zone. At this altitude, the human body can no longer acclimatize. It simply begins to slowly shut down and die. Digestive systems stop processing food. Muscle tissue breaks down. Arrogant climbers who ignore the warning signs fall victim to high-altitude pulmonary edema, where the lungs physically drown in their own fluid, or cerebral edema, where the brain swells against the skull. Adding to the biological stress is a localized weather phenomenon known as the viento blanco, or the white wind. Rogue storms generate hurricane-force gales exceeding 100 miles per hour, dropping temperatures to 30 degrees below zero and erasing all visibility in a matter of minutes. Rescue helicopters cannot operate at this altitude due to the thin air. If your body fails up here, you are entirely on your own, and the mountain has a long history of simply keeping those who underestimate it. From the freezing, oxygen-starved summit of Aconcagua, where human life is biologically impossible. The terrain demands another drastic change in direction. We leave the lethal heights behind and push northward along the spine of the continent, entering a territory where the ancient rocks have been violently twisted and the very earth is stained blood red by the passage of deep time. Pushing north along the spine of the continent, the Andes do not just block the rain, they tear the earth inside out. Welcome to the Quebrada de Humahuaca, in Argentina's far north. Forget the lush vineyards and the endless grass of the plains. We are now at an altitude of 10,000 feet, surrounded by an environment so dry and exposed it can look like a displaced chunk of Mars. You might look at the towering rock walls and think of a scenic canyon. But for geologists, this is a violent crime scene spanning millions of years. The centerpiece of this high-altitude desert is the Serranía de Hornocal. It is a massive, jagged mountain ridge that looks like someone took a chainsaw to a geological layer cake. Instead of standard gray granite, the peaks here display 14 distinct razor-sharp bands of color. Bold reds, mustard yellows, sea greens, and deep purples slash diagonally across the horizon. This is not a visual trick of the sunlight. It is the physical result of tectonic crushing on a massive, almost incomprehensible scale. Tens of millions of years ago, this entire region was sitting completely flat at the bottom of an ancient ocean. Over millennia, distinct layers of marine sediment, limestone, copper, iron, and sulfur settled evenly on top of each other. Then, the Nazca tectonic plate out in the Pacific Ocean slammed into the South American plate. The sheer kinetic force of an entire ocean floor driving underneath a continent forced that flat seabed to buckle fold and thrust thousands of feet into the thin air. What used to be horizontal underground layers were pushed up at sharp 60-degree angles. Exposed to the harsh atmosphere for the very first time, the raw, heavy metals began a massive chemical reaction. The iron turned a bleeding red. The copper oxidized into brilliant greens. The sulfur burned into harsh yellows. When you stand in front of the Hornocal, you are staring directly into the exposed, rusting guts of the earth. Moving further south through the desert corridor toward Salta and Cafayate, the wind takes over where the tectonic plates left off. The harsh gales carve through the sandstone of the Quebrada de las Conchas, creating massive echoing chambers like the amphitheater and the Garganta del Diablo. Surviving in the shadow of these rusting, wind-blasted mountains requires a very specific type of human endurance. The indigenous Andean people have inhabited this brutal terrain for thousands of years, and they do not fight the geography. They build with it. At 10,000 feet, the atmosphere is incredibly thin, stripping away any thermal protection from the sky. During the day, the high-altitude sun bakes the dry earth at blistering temperatures. But the moment the sun dips behind the jagged peaks, the temperature plummets instantly, often dropping below freezing in a matter of hours. Modern timber and steel construction would warp, crack, and freeze in these rapid temperature swings. Furthermore, there are no great forests up here to harvest wood. To survive, the locals rely on an ancient pragmatic engineering solution known as adobe. They do not use complex machinery or imported materials. They simply dig up the local clay, mix it with sand water and tough mountain straw, and bake the heavy bricks directly in the baking sun. It sounds primitive, but from a thermodynamic standpoint, it is highly advanced. Adobe possesses a massive thermal capacity. The thick, heavy mud walls act as a structural battery. Throughout the day, the dense clay slowly absorbs the punishing heat of the solar radiation, keeping the inside of the home remarkably cool. By the time the freezing night air rolls in, the walls have absorbed maximum heat. They slowly release that trapped thermal energy into the living space throughout the freezing night, maintaining a stable, livable temperature until the sun rises again. It is a brilliant zero-energy heating and cooling system built entirely out of dirt and gravity. Because normal timber does not grow in this high-altitude wasteland, builders utilize the only vegetation tough enough to survive the region: the giant cardon cactus. Once a cactus naturally dies and dries out, the tough, porous internal wood is harvested to create doors, window frames, and roof beams. These roofs are then insulated with thick layers of mud, completing a fortress designed solely to withstand the violent mood swings of the high-altitude atmosphere. The men who live here are as weathered as the clay they build with. They navigate the narrow, twisting dirt roads that carve through the rock formations, hauling supplies and moving small herds of llamas across distances that would break modern vehicles. Some locals chew coca leaves during long shifts at altitude. It is not treated as a recreational habit here, but as a traditional tool for dealing with fatigue, hunger, and the discomfort of thin mountain air. It does not remove the danger of altitude, but it reflects how daily life in this region has adapted to low oxygen. There is no room for weakness in Quebrada. Every action, from the construction of a house to the chewing of a leaf, is a calculated equation of survival. But as you push even higher into the altiplano, the vibrant colors of the oxidized rock begin to fade. The red of the stone is quickly swallowed by a blinding white. Stepping onto the Salinas Grandes is a violent assault on the human senses. At 11,000 feet above sea level, the terrain flattens into a terrifying expanse of pure, unbroken white, covering over 212 square miles. Millions of years ago, this basin was a massive lake fed by mineral-rich rivers flowing down from the surrounding volcanic peaks. As the climate shifted and the water evaporated under the punishing sun, it left behind a solid crust of sodium and potassium up to 1.5 feet thick. Today, there are no trees, no rocks, and absolutely no natural landmarks. This is an environment that actively works to dismantle your brain capacity to process space. When you stand in the center of this dried lake bed, the sheer volume of sunlight reflecting off the hexagonal salt crystals overwhelms the optic nerve. You lose all sense of depth, scale, and distance. A heavy cargo truck parked a mile away might look like a small toy sitting just 10 feet in front of you. During the brief rainy season, A few inches of water cover the hardened crust, turning the entire plain into a flawless, unblemished mirror. The horizon line completely vanishes. Truck drivers navigating this area often have to rely entirely on instruments because the human eye can no longer distinguish where the Earth ends and the atmosphere begins. Vertigo sets in quickly. The extreme ultraviolet radiation at this altitude, amplified by the blinding reflection from the ground, turns the basin into a solar oven. Exposed skin will burn in minutes, and unprotected eyes can suffer a painful condition known as snow blindness, where the cornea is physically sunburned by the intense glare. Where casual travelers see a surreal optical illusion, local workers see a punishing, unrelenting industrial work site. For generations, men have come to the Salinas Grandes to harvest salt, using little more than pickaxes, heavy iron bars, and shovels. They hack away at the thick crust, carving out heavy rectangular blocks of salt entirely by hand. They must endure blistering temperatures during the midday sun, sub-zero freezing winds at night, and an atmosphere containing roughly 30% less oxygen than at sea level. There is zero shade and no shelter. Every swing of the pickaxe is a struggle for breath. Today, this grueling manual labor exists alongside a much larger high-stakes global industry. Beneath this blinding white crust lies a massive concentration of lithium, the highly reactive metal powering the batteries of electric vehicles, smartphones, and modern military technology worldwide. Multinational mining corporations have moved into the region deploying heavy industrial pumps to draw mineral-rich brine from deep below the salt flats. This brine is channeled into massive shallow evaporation pools. As the brutal sun and dry wind evaporate the water over many months, the concentrated lithium is left behind to be harvested. The economic contrast on the salt flats is sharp and unforgiving. You have local miners still chopping raw salt blocks by hand, sharing the exact same harsh desert with billion-dollar extraction operations feeding global technological demands. It is a brutal high-altitude frontier. Vast wealth is continually wrung from one of the most inhospitable environments on the planet, requiring a mechanical and physical toll that few could ever endure. If the blinding white of the salt flats destroys your sense of direction, the next territory we enter will make you question whether you are still standing on Earth at all. You are looking at a graveyard, not of men, but of the Earth itself. Welcome to Catamarca, a province in northwestern Argentina that holds the scars of one of the most violent geological events in planetary history. Forget the lush valleys or sprawling cattle ranches you might associate with South America. This is an environment stripped down to raw, blasted rock. We are standing in the Campo de Piedra Pómez, a desolate expanse stretching for over 15 miles, covered entirely in towering blocks of pumice stone. It looks exactly like the surface of the moon, and the violent physics that created it are just as alien. 100,000 years ago, this entire region was obliterated by a supervolcanic eruption of apocalyptic proportions. When the subterranean magma chamber finally breached the crust, the sudden release of pressure was catastrophic. The superheated liquid rock, packed with trapped gases, was blasted into the freezing thin atmosphere. Because of the rapid depressurization and instant drop in temperature, the magma did not flow like liquid lava. Instead, the trapped gas bubbles expanded and froze instantly in mid-air. The result was pumice. It is a highly porous glass-like rock that is so light it can actually float on water. Millions of tons of this material rained back down onto the earth, burying the landscape under a layer of abrasive white ash and rock up to 150 feet thick. Over the millennia, the relentless howling winds of the high Andes have sandblasted these pumice fields into jagged aerodynamic towers. Walking through this labyrinth of frozen magma is an eerie experience. The porous rock absorbs ambient sound, creating an unnerving dead silence that stretches across the entire desert. The scale of the Campo de Piedra Pómez is difficult for the human mind to process. You can drive a heavy four-wheel drive truck for hours through this white desert and see absolutely no change in the scenery. It is a vast, monochromatic wasteland spread across a remote, high-altitude basin. The local drivers and guides who navigate this area do not rely on satellite navigation, which often fails to capture the rapidly changing wind-carved tracks. They rely on visual memory and the position of the sun, knowing that a broken axle or a blown radiator in the middle of this pumice labyrinth could mean waiting days for any sign of rescue. Pushing further west toward the Chilean border, the terrain shifts from strange to outright hostile. Here stands the Ojos del Salado. At 22,615 feet above sea level, it is the highest active volcano on the entire planet. This is an environment that actively rejects human life. There are no thriving ecosystems here. There is no vegetation, no grazing animals, and absolutely no margin for error. The landscape is a brutal combination of loose volcanic scree, suffocating ash, and deep hidden crevasses. Surviving at this altitude requires specialized equipment and extreme physical endurance. The atmospheric pressure at the summit is less than half of what you would experience at sea level, meaning every breath yields only a fraction of the oxygen your brain and muscles need to function. Hypoxia sets in quickly, causing confusion, severe fatigue, and potentially fatal altitude sickness. The wind dominates everything. Gale force gusts routinely exceed 100 miles per hour, dropping the temperature well below zero, even during the peak summer months. These sheer winds blast the loose volcanic sand across the mountain, acting like industrial sandpaper against exposed skin and equipment. Attempting to navigate this terrain is a logistical nightmare. You do not just drive up the side of this volcano. Heavy off-road vehicles must be severely modified to even attempt the approach. engines choke and stall in the oxygen-starved air, losing up to 40% of their total horsepower. Standard road tires are vulnerable to sharp volcanic rock. Low temperatures, low pressure conditions, and the constant punishment of rough, high-altitude tracks. Mechanics have to adjust fuel mixtures manually and rely on heavy-duty tires specifically designed for extreme rock crawling. For the geologists and mountaineers who venture here, survival means carrying heavy oxygen cylinders and thermal gear designed for polar expeditions. It is a raw mechanical test of endurance for both man and machine. But geology is a study of extreme contrasts. While the high-altitude deserts of Catamarca represent the ultimate deprivation of moisture, a dramatic shift awaits. From this dead, dry land of frozen magma and suffocating dust, we will plunge straight into the massive water reserves that sustain the rest of the continent. To understand the true scale of the Ibera wetlands, you have to stop looking at it as a simple swamp and start seeing it as a massive geological machine. Covering over 3 million acres in northeastern Argentina, this is not just a flooded terrestrial plain. It is one of the great hydrological engines of northeastern Argentina. Ibera functions as an enormous, highly efficient natural sponge. The entire ecosystem sits within a vast geographic depression lined with impermeable volcanic sand and clay. This means the staggering volume of water that flows in has almost nowhere to drain. Instead, a dense intertwining mat of floating vegetation, rotting biomass, and complex root systems traps the water. These floating islands are so thick and structurally sound that a full-grown man or a heavy predator can walk across them without breaking through. When torrential storms pound the South American continent, Ibera absorbs the massive excess of water, single-handedly preventing catastrophic flooding in the lower agricultural basins. Then, during the punishing dry seasons, this giant sponge slowly exhales that trapped moisture back into the atmosphere. It actively dictates the regional climate, generates localized weather systems, and keeps the surrounding plains from turning into an arid, unlivable dust bowl. It is a brilliant, ruthless, self-sustaining hydraulic pump, but beneath this perfectly balanced water filtration system lies a brutal, unforgiving biological battleground. Navigating these murky channels means entering a domain ruled by predators perfectly evolved for aquatic combat. Yakar caiman patrol the waterways by the hundreds of thousands. They are highly efficient, opportunistic killers, growing up to 9 feet long, armored in thick, rigid scales, and armed with jaws specifically designed to crush shell and bone. They lie suspended beneath the floating islands of water hyacinth, striking at passing prey with explosive, blinding speed. However, even the heavily armored caiman is not the undisputed ruler of this wetland. That title belongs to the jaguar. In most parts of the world, large felines go out of their way to avoid deep water. In Ibera, the jaguar operates as a water-capable predator. These heavily muscled cats can move through flooded marshland and ambush caiman in their own element. They attack with one of the strongest bite forces of any big cat, targeting the skull and neck with a level of precision that turns even an armored reptile into prey. It is an ancient evolutionary arms race played out daily in the blood and the mud. For roughly 70 years, this apex predator had been wiped out from Iberá. Hunted to localized extinction by cattle ranchers and poachers, the sudden disappearance of the jaguar sent a devastating shockwave through the food chain. Caiman and capybara populations exploded without their natural population control, leading to severe overgrazing that actively threatened the mechanical function of the wetland sponge itself. Today, wildlife engineers are executing one of the most complex rewilding projects on the planet. They are physically transporting and breeding jaguars back into the deep marsh, reintroducing the ultimate predator to forcefully restore the ecosystem to its natural violent equilibrium. It is a high-stakes experiment in ecological engineering, proving that preserving a landscape sometimes requires bringing back the very apex killers that rule it. Here in the Iberá wetlands, water acts as a slow, silent force that dictates the atmosphere and sustains an intricate web of life and death. But as we move outward from this flooded basin, we will witness what happens when that exact same element is unleashed with pure kinetic fury. Because water does not just pool quietly into the ground. Given enough gravity, volume, and time, it violently tears the earth completely in two. $396,000 gallons. That is how much water is violently forced over a sheer basalt cliff edge every single second. You do not just see Iguazu Falls. You feel it vibrating through the soles of your boots and rattling around inside your chest cavity long before the mist even hits your face. This is not a scenic river lazily spilling over a ledge. It is a brutal, unrelenting display of fluid dynamics and tectonic trauma. To understand why Iguazu exists, you have to dig into the bedrock. Roughly 130 million years ago, a massive volcanic eruption flooded this region of South America with a thick layer of liquid magma. When that massive sheet of basalt cooled, it contracted and fractured, creating a severe geological fault line. Fast forward to today, and a vast upstream river system funnels heavy seasonal rainfall toward this ancient basalt edge. The river does not just flow, it collides with the sudden drop-off. This localized hydrodynamic nightmare breaks into a system often described as 275 waterfalls stretched across nearly 2 miles of jagged rock. The absolute apex of this kinetic chaos is a tight horseshoe-shaped chasm, appropriately named the Devil's Throat. Nearly half of the river's total volume converges into this single narrow gorge. Water is an exceptionally heavy element. At 8.3 pounds per gallon, the sheer mass of the river dropping 269 feet creates a massive displacement of atmosphere. As millions of tons of water enter freefall, they drag the surrounding air down into the canyon, violently compressing it at the bottom. The resulting explosion of outward pressure produces a perpetual deafening roar. Standing on the steel catwalks, suspended directly over the abyss, human vocal cords are rendered completely useless. You can scream at the top of your lungs to the person standing shoulder to shoulder with you, and they will not hear a single syllable. The kinetic energy generated by this constant impact is so extreme it pulverizes the water into mist and spray, driving a solid column of pulverized mist hundreds of feet into the sky. And creating its own permanent localized microclimate. Engineers tasked with building and maintaining these observation walkways face a constant losing battle against structural fatigue. The metal grates and concrete pillars are subjected to punishing 24-hour-a-day vibration, extreme moisture, and the relentless pull of the current. During severe flood seasons, the water volume can multiply tenfold, tearing steel walkways completely off their heavily reinforced concrete pilings and twisting them like cheap wire. Maintaining human access to this environment requires heavy industrial repair work and a constant pouring of capital. Beyond its geological and engineering significance, this immense display of force dictates hard international geopolitics. The crushing weight of Iguazu serves as the literal unyielding border between Argentina and Brazil. This is not an arbitrary line drawn on a map by politicians in a quiet room. It is a raw physical barrier that historically divided colonial empires and dictated military movements across the continent. Today, the two nations share an uneasy custody of this geological engine. Just downstream, the combined output of this river system feeds into massive hydroelectric infrastructure. The water churning through the Devil's Throat eventually spins turbines that power millions of homes, heavy manufacturing plants, and massive industrial sectors across both countries. The flow rate here is heavily monitored, tracked by satellites, and analyzed by economists, because it is a critical strategic asset. The raw power of the falls is a physical manifestation of the economic energy driving the region. Yet all this fresh water surging through the basalt fault line eventually has to move on. The violent descent at Iguazu is ultimately just a geographic bottleneck before the river broadens, slows, and begins its long, steady march toward the coast. While the crashing waters of the Devil's Throat represent the blind, unthinking power of gravity, the saltwater realm waiting at the end of this journey is governed by a completely different kind of lethality. When the muddy river runoff finally bleeds into the cold Atlantic, it crosses a distinct biological boundary, entering a dark, unforgiving territory ruled by the planet's most highly evolved apex predators. For any marine mammal, beaching itself on dry land is an absolute death sentence. It is a fatal error in navigation that ends in suffocation under the crushing weight of their own bodies. Yet on the eastern coast of Argentina, along the desolate Valdez Peninsula, the ocean's ultimate apex predators do this on purpose. This is not a mistake. It is a highly calculated military strike. Here, a specialized pod of orcas has mastered a hunting technique found nowhere else on Earth, known as intentional beaching. They target sea lion pups playing in the shallow surf, but reaching them requires breaking the primary rule of aquatic survival. The orcas wait offshore, reading the rhythm of the tides. They are calculating the exact hydrodynamic force of the incoming waves. When the timing is perfect, a male weighing upwards of 10,000 pounds accelerates with a sudden burst of speed and uses the surge of the water to launch his massive body out of the ocean and onto the sloping gravel beach. The kinetic energy carries him directly into the colony of sea lions. He snaps his jaws shut and secures his target. But getting on the beach is only half the equation. Now, a 5-ton animal is stranded on dry land. The physics of the retreat are just as precise as the attack. The orca must wait for the exact moment the water recedes, rolling his body, and using the backwash of the wave to drag himself off the stones and back into the deep. The margin for error is 0. If he miscalculates the tide, or pushes too far up the gravel bank, he will not make it back. He will dry out and die under the punishing Patagonian sun. This technique is so complex and dangerous that it is not instinctual. It is learned behavior. Older orcas spend years teaching the younger members of the pod exactly how to ride the waves, demonstrating the precise mechanics of surfing the gravel without getting permanently stuck. It is a brutal, high-stakes transfer of knowledge passed down through generations. That same raw determination to survive against impossible odds is mirrored in the human history of this coastline. Just south of the peninsula sits the port city of Puerto Madryn. Today, it is a functional industrial hub, but its origins are rooted in sheer, desperate endurance. In the late 19th century, a group of Welsh immigrants landed on this completely barren shore. They were fleeing cultural suppression back in Great Britain, searching for a place where they could live on their own terms. What they found instead was a hostile, wind-battered desert devoid of fresh water and completely isolated from the rest of the world. The local geography offered them nothing. There were no natural resources to harvest and no infrastructure to shelter them from the freezing Patagonian gales. Early survival required extreme physical labor. They dug crude caves into the coastal cliffs just to survive the first winter. To get drinking water, they had to march for days across the arid scrubland. But they did not abandon the settlement. Through relentless grit, these pioneers built irrigation canals by hand, diverting water from a distant river to turn the dry dust into workable farmland. They laid down railway tracks, forged alliances with the indigenous tribes, and engineered a self-sustaining society in a place that actively tried to reject them. Their survival proves that conquering a landscape is rarely about brute force. It is about understanding the mechanics of your environment and adapting to its harshest realities. From the crushing depths of the ocean to the freezing altitudes of the highest mountain peaks from the extreme north to the very bottom of the southern hemisphere, there is only one element that binds all of these extremes together. More than 3,200 miles of asphalt, crushed gravel, and hard-packed dirt. That is Route 40. It does not just cross Argentina, it anchors it to the earth. Running completely parallel to the violent tectonic fault line of the Andes Mountains, this highway serves as the literal spine of the nation. Throw away your standard tourist itinerary because this road demands absolute respect. It is an engineering and geographical gauntlet that rips directly through 20 different national parks, crosses 18 major river systems, and brutally climbs to a suffocating altitude of over 16,000 feet above sea level. Up there, combustion engines physically starve for oxygen, and tires are shredded by sharp volcanic rock. Route 40 exposes you to every geographical extreme this compressed continent has to offer. It is a relentless physical barrier that forces you to navigate freezing southern glaciers, arid wind-swept steppes, and blistering high-altitude salt flats, all on the exact same road. Driving the entire length of this highway reveals a very hard and uncomfortable truth. Argentina simply does not tolerate weakness. This is not a picturesque landscape designed for easy living or casual observation. It is a highly hostile territory where extreme weather, tectonic instability, and punishing distances dictate the absolute rules of existence. Every single living creature, from the apex predators hunting on the coastal gravel to the hardened ranchers trying to carve out a living in the dusty interior, has been forced to learn this. You either adapt to the sheer cruelty of this environment, or the land simply swallows you whole. There is absolutely no middle ground here. If you are planning to tackle this brutal environment yourself, do not come unprepared. Forget the luxury sedans. You will need a heavy-duty 4x4 vehicle, reinforced suspension, extra fuel reserves, and the practical knowledge to read rapidly changing mountain weather patterns before they trap you. Nature out here does not care about your vacation schedule, and help is often hundreds of miles away. If you respect the land, it will let you pass. If you found this breakdown of raw survival and heavy geography useful, leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more unvarnished looks at the mechanics of our world. If Argentina showed us how many worlds can exist inside one single country, Cape Verde will show us something even stranger: how people survive on isolated volcanic islands, completely surrounded by the Atlantic Ocean, where fresh water is scarce, the wind never stops blowing, and the land itself feels like it was built entirely from fire, salt, and survival.